This was a day spent assessing the damage and cleaning up in the wake of yesterday's storm. And there will be a lot of cleaning up to do in the 4,000 block of Primrose Lane in northeast Philadelphia. A 100-year-old tree fell on the house while its owner was driving to Chicago to visit his daughter. Chopper 6 spied another huge tree that fell down in the Mount Pleasant Cemetery in Millville, New Jersey. In fact, Millville got hit with straight-line winds that caused a great deal of damage. We'll have more on that in a second. And this was the scene in Claymont, Delaware today, where the storms brought down power lines like here on Philadelphia Pike. Meteorologist Adam Joseph is standing by with the latest from AccuWeather. But first, let's go live to Millville, New Jersey, and Action News reporter David Henry. And David, sometimes those straight-line winds can be just as destructive as the circular winds of a tornado.
That's exactly right, Jim. They can both reach the same velocity, and that's pretty much what happened here in Millville yesterday. I'm standing in a bright sunny yard here right now, but until about 4 o'clock yesterday, it was a shady oasis. Around 4 o'clock is when that straight line wind came through and knocked down 15 to 20 trees in this one yard alone. Now, the tree crews have been here cleaning up most of it, but you can still see the extent of the damage. The people who live in this house heard it coming and scrambled to safety.
When that awful wind and noise came, I went to the basement.
And when the storm passed, they came out to find their property had been dramatically transformed. The trees and gardens they had carefully planted over the years were gone. Thousands of dollars worth of damage, and most of it not covered.
I think damage, structural damage to the house or, say, a garage or even a car is covered, but just the trees that fell over, that's our problem.
Others have been forced out of their homes. Huge trees came crashing down on them.
We've got damage to the attic, the eaves. Basically we can't stay here because we don't know if it's safe at this point.
It's a 1.5 mile trail of damage. As the trees came down, they snapped electrical lines, cutting off power to hundreds of homes. Dozens of trees came down in the Mount Pleasant Cemetery. But despite it all, no serious injuries.
The residents did exactly what they needed to do. In this neighborhood, which was the hardest hit, there was no injuries that we know of.
The tree crews had their hands full. Most of the work paid for out of the pockets of homeowners with no help in sight.
If we were looking at a major event that impacted a large portion of high dollar amounts, then there was a possibility we could apply to the federal government, through the state, to the federal government for assistance.
Investigators from the National Weather Service came out to survey the damage. Many residents thought they'd been hit by a tornado, but the Weather Service determined it was a microburst with wind speeds of 70 to 80 miles per hour, essentially a mini hurricane.
They basically experienced a Category 1 storm on a very small scale.
And the Weather Service determines that by actually walking the path of the storm and observing the damage, and they noticed that all of the trees seem to have knocked down in one direction instead of scattered out in a circular pattern as if it had been a tornado. Live in Millville, New Jersey, I'm David Henry, Channel 6 Action News. Jim?
Thank you, David.